happened so fast I still hear the shatter before I remember the pain. I had been sleeping in the living room again because my sister had claimed my bedroom weeks ago after deciding hers was too small for her energy. My parents let her. Actually, they encouraged it, saying, "She's the one who'll amount to something. She needs her rest." That night, I was on the couch trying to stay quiet because I knew the sound of my own breathing annoyed them. It was past midnight when I felt something cold against my cheek. A split second later, crash! The edge of a drinking glass split across my face, slicing the skin near my eye and nose. I gasped, more out of shock than pain. The sting came after, warm blood trickling down my temple. My father was standing over me, gripping the jagged base of what was left of the glass, his chest rising and falling with pure rage. "Maybe now you'll learn to sleep like a human," he said through his teeth, as if I'd committed some unthinkable crime. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video? My mom came in from the kitchen holding a dish towel. She didn't look alarmed. If anything, she looked pleased. She tilted her head and said, "Finally, now you're pretty enough to match your worthless life." I felt my stomach drop. That was their joke. This wasn't just punishment. This was entertainment. My sister's laugh came from the hallway, light and cruel. "Guess you'll finally stop breathing so loud now," she said, walking past as if I were nothing more than a broken lamp on the floor. The wound throbbed, but I didn't dare move. I knew better. My father crouched inches from my face and added in a low voice, "Don't even think about running to anyone. We'll tell them you tripped over your own laziness." They didn't offer me a bandage. They didn't ask if I could see out of my eye. Instead, my mom walked back into the kitchen and told my dad to clean up the mess before the carpet stained. My dad tossed a paper towel in my direction without looking at me, muttering something about useless people not bleeding right. I went to the bathroom, my hands shaking as I pressed the towel against my skin. The cut was deeper than I thought. Every time I blinked, it burned. I caught my reflection in the mirror, swollen cheek, blood trailing over my jawline, and I had to grip the counter to steady myself. It wasn't just the physical pain. It was knowing, without a shred of doubt, that if I passed out right there, none of them would help me. That night, I slept sitting up in the corner of the bathroom with the door locked. I listened to the sound of them laughing in the kitchen, plates clinking, a show playing on TV. My name wasn't called once. No one checked if I was alive. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my mom banging on the bathroom door. "Get out! You're hogging the mirror, and some of us actually have lives to live." I opened the door and stepped past her. She looked at my face and smirked. "Don't worry, honey. Scars can be character building. Not that you have any character to build on." My dad was at the table drinking coffee, eyes glued to his phone. "Remember," he said without looking up, "keep your mouth shut. Breathing too loud already got you this far." My sister, with her perfect hair and smug smile, added, "Maybe you should just stop breathing altogether. Save everyone the trouble." I went to my room, or what used to be my room, and found the door locked. My sister's music was blasting inside. My old clothes were in garbage bags on the porch. That's when I knew. This wasn't going to stop. It would only get worse. I pressed my hand to my cheek, feeling the sting, and I made myself a promise. They thought they broke me. They thought a scar would keep me small and silent. But I was going to make them choke on the very silence they demanded. They just didn't know it yet. By the next morning, the wound had crusted over, but my cheek throbbed every time I moved my jaw. I had no antiseptic, no proper bandages, just a strip of toilet paper taped to my face like an afterthought. My mom was already in the kitchen, stirring her coffee with the kind of lazy rhythm that told me she was in no hurry to do anything that might benefit me. My dad sat across from her, scrolling on his phone. Neither of them looked up when I came in. "You look worse today," my mom finally said, her eyes still on her mug. "Guess ugly does sink deeper over time." My dad smirked and added, "You should be thanking me. A face like that will keep you from bothering men. I'm saving the world from more of you." The bile rose in my throat, but I kept my mouth shut. The last thing I needed was to give them another excuse. My sister walked in wearing my old hoodie, the one my grandmother had given me before she died. She didn't even glance at me before tossing her hair and saying, "You're still bleeding?" Pathetic. It was like every second was a performance for them, an endless act where my role was the punchline. They got off on watching me flinch, on watching me shrink into myself. But while I sat there chewing dry toast they'd tossed at me without a plate, I started mapping out something in my head. For years, they'd kept me trapped with the same two weapons, fear and isolation. They'd taught me that nobody cared, that nobody would believe me if I spoke up, and I'd let them convince me of that. But a scar changes things. A scar is a story people notice, even if you don't want them to. Later that week, I went to work at the small grocery store down the road. The manager, Mr. Harris, froze when he saw my face. "What happened?" he asked, his brows pulling tight. I forced a laugh and mumbled something about tripping over my own shoes. He didn't look convinced. Over the next few days, I caught him watching me when I stocked shelves or bagged groceries. He didn't press me, but I could tell he was filing things away, and for the first time, I didn't rush to shut that door. Back home, the cruelty didn't let up. My mom started calling me glassface in the mornings. My dad made exaggerated snoring noises whenever I sat on the couch, a mocking reminder of the night he'd smashed that glass. My sister, she went further. She started filming me on her phone whenever I walked into a room, zooming in on my scar and sending it to her friends with captions like, "When you try to look important, but God disagrees." But here's the thing, they were getting sloppy, too confident. My dad started bragging to his drinking buddies about how he kept his house in order. My mom laughed about how a little pain teaches the weak their place. And my sister? She left her phone unlocked one night, the camera roll full of videos and photos that told a very different story than the one they'd tell the neighbors. The shift came the night my dad's friend Carl came over. He'd had too much to drink and made a comment about my scar. Something about not all accidents being bad ones. My dad chuckled, leaning back like a king holding court. "She's lucky I didn't break her whole face. That's how you keep them quiet." Carl's smirk faltered just a little. I saw it. And in that moment, I realized something. The right audience could make them choke on their own words. They thrived in the dark. They wilted in the light. So I started planting seeds, carefully, quietly. When I went to work, I made sure to let Mr. Harris see the bruises that never quite faded. When I passed Mrs. Lowell, the neighbor who always peeked over the fence, I didn't rush to cover the scar. I let my dad's voice carry through open windows when he barked his insults, and I made sure my mom's laughter followed right after. And at night, when they thought I was asleep, I listened. I learned their routines, their habits, their slip-ups. They had enemies they didn't know they had, old debts, burned bridges, grudges that still simmered. And I started to think, maybe I didn't have to fight them head on. Maybe all I had to do was open the right doors and let their own rot spill out. By the end of the second week, my dad had no idea that the very words he'd thrown at me in the dark were being repeated in kitchens, whispered over fences, and quietly handed from one mouth to another like poison. My mom didn't notice that people had stopped waving at her in the store. My sister didn't see that her friends were laughing at her when she bragged about putting me in my place. I kept my head down. I kept breathing too loud. And I kept waiting, because the silence I was about to give them would be louder than anything they'd ever imagined. It started on a Sunday morning, the one day of the week my parents treated like their stage for perfection. The living room was spotless, the coffee table stacked with my mom's fancy magazines, and the smell of overbrewed coffee filled the air. They had invited a few important people over, my dad's work friend who could get him cheap car parts, my mom's church acquaintance who loved gossiping, and my sister's latest boyfriend who was as shallow as she was. I wasn't invited to sit with them. I never was. My mom made me clean the kitchen instead, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "Don't forget to scrub the grout. People notice when filth doesn't know its place." But this time, the guests noticed something else. My dad was in the middle of telling some loud, self-congratulatory story when Mrs. Lowell, the neighbor who'd been listening through those open windows for weeks, walked in uninvited. She didn't even knock. She had a phone in her hand, and the way she looked at my dad made his voice falter. "Thought you might want to hear what the neighborhood's been hearing," she said, her finger tapping her screen. Before anyone could react, the room filled with sound. My dad's voice booming and clear. "She's lucky I didn't break her whole face. That's how you keep them quiet." My mom's laugh followed, sharp and unmistakable. "A little pain teaches the weak their place." The guests froze. My sister's boyfriend leaned forward, his face pale. Mr. Harris, yes, my boss, was there too, standing just behind Mrs. Lowell. I'd accidentally mentioned to him that my parents were hosting a get-together. And then came the images, projected right onto the TV screen via Mrs. Lowell's phone. Photos of my scar the day it happened. Videos my sister had filmed, mocking me while the cut on my cheek was still bleeding. The captions she'd written, cruel and smug, filled the screen. When you try to look important, but God disagrees. Nobody spoke, not even my parents. My dad's jaw clenched, but his voice was gone. My mom's hand trembled as she reached for her coffee cup and missed. My sister tried to grab the remote, but Mr. Harris stepped in front of her. "This is what you've been doing?" he asked, his voice low but razor sharp. "This is who you really are?" I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The guests began to stand, some shaking their heads, others avoiding eye contact altogether. Mr. Harris walked out first. Mrs. Lowell followed, leaving the damning evidence behind. One by one, the rest followed until it was just the four of us in that too-clean living room. The silence was suffocating. My dad opened his mouth, but nothing came out. My mom's eyes darted around like she was looking for an escape hatch. My sister's phone buzzed over and over, messages from her friends, no doubt, the ones who'd now seen everything. I picked up my coat from the chair by the door. "You always said no one would believe me," I said quietly, finally meeting my dad's eyes. "Turns out, you were wrong." Then I walked out. Not a slam, not a shout. Just the kind of silence that made them sit in their own rot. And that's exactly how I left them. In a perfect little room with no audience left to applaud their cruelty. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.